the government. In royal colonies, the king would pick the governor, and the governor would pick the upper house representative. And in the royal colonies, the voters would pick the lower house representative. The royal colonies consisted of Virginia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, North Carolina, South Carolina, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. The proprietary colonies. The proprietary colonies has 3 colonies in it: Pennsylvania, Georgia, Maryland. And in the proprietary colonies, the proprietary would pick the governor, and of course, like the other colony, the governor would pick the upper house representative, and the voters would pick the lower house representative. In self-governing colonies, the voters had the most power. The voters would pick the governor. The voters would also pick the upper house representative and the lower house representative. This is the most democratic government that they had back then. Sadly, this only consisted of 2 colonies, Rhode Island and Connecticut. So, we know that every colony has a governor, but what we don't know is the governor's job. Well, obviously, a governor's job is to pick the representative for the upper house, but they also have to pick a legislator for their colony. And what a legislator's job is the legislator makes laws and enforces them. So from the last part of the video, we now know that every colony has a legislator which makes laws and has a governor. Well, if there's laws, that means they can be broken. So what's going to happen if they're broken? There are 2 types of courts, a local court and a high court. The reason they have 2 courts is one local court is for minor offenses, as where high courts are for major offenses. So let's talk about local courts. Some offenses that will put you in local court are disturbing the peace, slander, drunkenness, swearing, or breaking the Sabbath. And though it's a local court, they still have some pretty embarrassing and harsh punishments. These punishments included public whipping, disgrace while locked in a pillory. A pillory is where your head is locked in between 2 pieces of wood and people will just stare at you and know that you did something bad. So that's really embarrassing if you think about it. Also, a ducking stool is where you would be locked on a chair and they would dunk you in the river. Sometimes they would drown you, other times they just dunk you. So, local courts are for smaller offenses. Well, what happens if you create a major offense? Well, that's when you go to high courts. And the high court their offenses are armed robbery, murder, piracy, counterfeiting, or treason. And the main punishment that the high courts would give is death. And here's a picture of someone being hung because, well, they got punished death. So, now that we know what the offenses are, let me get more in depth with them. Disturbing the peace would be making loud noises and disturbing someone's peace. Slander would be like starting false rumors or stories about someone. Drunkenness is pretty obvious. It's where you get drunk and cause a scene and stuff. Swearing is, of course, swearing. And breaking the Sabbath is like breaking a holy day. So now that I've gotten more depth with the offenses in local court, let me go to the high court. Armed robbery is having a weapon and robbing someone. Murder would be killing someone. Piracy would be copying something that isn't yours and selling it. And counterfeiting is selling false goods or using false items. Or treason is it's a crime betraying one's country. Obviously, all of these offenses are stuff that can still happen today, but our punishments aren't nearly as harsh as they were back then. So this is a picture I found off Google. And so there's the royal colonies in purple, The proprietary colony is in green. And instead of character colonies, it's self-governing colonies in yellow. So it's time for you to pick which one you like best. There's it's the one most like today's democracy is the self-governing colonies, which is Rhode Island, Connecticut. The royal colonies, which are basically ruled by a higher power such as the king. Or there's the proprietary colony, which is ruled by a proprietary. So, you make your decision.